Okay, now we're going to continue with the framing plan and locate the trusses that are actually physically supporting both of our units, the kitchen and the dining. You can start with either one. On this job, we started with the kitchen unit, and I'll just walk you through the exact procedure we did here. And I have some field notes on the side, so I'm basically going to reproduce those field notes and talk you through how we actually did it. Okay. So I'm going to start with the kitchen unit. And I am now inside the kitchen, down here looking around, trying to figure out where to place my ladder, because I'm going to have to get up on the ladder, open the ceiling, poke through the ceiling with a flashlight, tape measure, and a laser, and a pad of paper, and start observing, measuring, and taking notes. So before I poke through the tile, I want to figure out where's a good place to do that. So I want to find the dimension, the location of the edge of this unit from the rear wall. I actually did the math here already, and I just took 76'9", which is the overall building, minus the 40'5", minus the 9'6", and I came up with 26'10". Just sort of made a side note here because so I didn't forget it as I'm proceeding. So I move my ladder around that area and try to figure out where to place it so I can go up and pop through the tile. So I go up and pop through the tile and see what I can see. Sometimes I can't see anything, so I need to move the ladder and find a place where I can see. So finally, I get up there, and one of the first things I see is a set of double trusses. Well, I like it when I see double trusses because that is, carries a lot of weight. So the first thing I do is I see a set of double trusses. So while I'm standing on top of the ladder with all my stuff sort of spread out, I note a double truss, and then I come down a couple steps from the ladder, and I sketch here something which indicates, I call that the rear wall. And then while I'm standing a couple steps down, I just hold my laser and shoot to the rear wall and make a note that that double truss is basically about 25 foot 4 inches from the rear wall. Okay? Now, I've begun to figure it out. I'm going to set this stuff aside here. Excuse me. Now, when I'm up here, I try to get all the information I can while I'm up here. So I look back towards the rear wall above the ceiling, and I can see a bunch of trusses this way. I measure with my tape measure the first truss, and I find there's one there at 24 inches on center. Extend the tape, I see another at 24, another at 24, and I note 24 inches on center while I'm up on the ladder. Now, and I know that this is all on this edge of the unit because my unit starts at 26'10". Sometimes you can see you will see down shots, but you're probably not going to see where the edge of that unit is. It's only by your scaled drawings and your measured dimensions you're really going to know where the edge of that unit is, okay? So we know that the edge of the unit is going to start somewhere over here at 26'10", and this is 25'4". And the unit's going to extend basically 9'6" that way. Okay, so from 10 feet here, I need to know what the trusses are doing for another 10 or 12 or 14 feet this direction. This particular case, I turned and looked this way, and it looked like there's a bunch of other trusses, similar spacing as these, so I just make a note of how many I can actually see. I don't make any assumptions, okay? I'm noting what I can see. And I see a truss and a truss and a truss and a truss. And out here at this truss, it looks like another double truss. So I make a note of that, okay? Now I'm on my ladder here. I can't see perfectly well where that is. In this case, I remember I took the laser and I placed the edge of the laser on this truss, and I had to wiggle it around, and I was able to shoot to this truss, and I came up with something like 123 inches. Okay, well, I know these are at 2 feet on center, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I'd expect that to be at 10 feet or 120 inches. I shot it, it was 123, but also my laser was at a cockeyed angle, okay? So I know it was really a little bit less than 123. I'm comfortable it was at 120, so I note it as 120. Now, one other little notation there is almost always you're going to find trusses spaced at either 24 inches, 16 inches, 24 inches, or 32 inches, or increments of that, because they're normally spaced to work with the standard length of the sheets of plywood that lay on top, which is 96 inches, 8 feet, 96 inches. So 120 is what I would expect, 5 spaces at 24 inches each, okay? Now, I measured the 120, so I wrote the 120. I observe that these are spaces between and they all look the same. So I'm comfortable at indicating them, okay? So that's that. Now, also, while I'm here, I notice there's a down shot, and it's between these two trusses, so I just indicate it, and another one here between those two trusses, so I indicate it. If I can see where it is, I'll note it. If I can't see where it is, I won't note it. I showed supply return. I couldn't tell which is which, but one was one was the other. Now, I still need to get the trusses beyond here, okay? So in this case, I had to take my ladder down and go back up here, and I went up here, basically here, and I was able to see 2 more trusses this way, both at 24 inches on center. And I was able to double check and verify going back this direction. I actually measured my 120 again and just made sure that my little assumption there was accurate. And I saw the trusses and I said, I'm good. So I climbed down off the ladder and go back to my table. Okay, now here at the table, we're going to use the scale once again. And here's how we're going to do that. Okay, I'm going to use the scale, and I'm now going to draw these trusses to scale on this drawing. First thing I'm going to do is start with my 25'4" and turn the calculator on, and 25.33 divided by my scale of 11.13 equals 2.27 and something. So I'm going to come here at 2.27, 2.27, right about there. And I'm going to draw a double truss. Okay. Next what I'm going to do is come out here. I could go the very next one, but when you're working with these scales, the longer you can go, the more accurate it stays. I'm going to come out here 10 feet, 10 divided by 11.13 equals 0.898 or 0.9. So I'm going to come out here another 0.9 and indicate another double truss. Okay, it's looking pretty good. I can see that these doubles are aligning with the kitchen truss. So I'm thinking I've got this thing figured out properly. Now I need to show 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 equal spaces, trusses here. Now here's a little trick I do, is I'm going to basically lay my 3 kind of in the middle of those two and my 2 in the middle of those two at an angle. Now what that does is this. Though I've got 10 ticks between these, or if I go every other tick, I've got 5 equal spaces. So watch this. I'm going to go a tick there, and a tick at the 4, and a tick at the 6, and a tick at the 8. Well, what I'm going to do is get actually kind of tricky, and I'm going to come this way also, because I want to go, I'm going to show 1, 2, 3, and then I can go 2 that way also. So I'm going to go 1, 2. Now, what happens here is I draw a line on that tick, on that tick, on that tick, on that tick. I have now shown 4 trusses between the doubles. Everything's at equal spacing, 4 at equal spacing. And I'm going to add a line there, line there, line there, line there, line there. I have now shown all the trusses. The spacing is to scale. The doubles are properly located. And I've shown all the trusses I have physically observed. Everything is to scale and organized on this drawing. Last thing I'm going to do is document on here what I actually physically measured. So I'm going to say 24 inches on center typical. I'm also going to note that there I measured 25 foot 4 inches, and there I measured 10 foot. Now that gives us, by documenting that, that gives the engineers a little bit of room to move. What we haven't documented is this. On the rooftop, that inside wall at the back of the store there, let me show that. That wall may be something like 8 inches thick. But here on the ground floor, it may be something like 12 inches thick. So by measuring here and there, etc., we get a little, things can be off a couple inches. By giving these dimensions, our engineers are going to be able to do some research and figure out what is more appropriate here. Okay, so now I've done trusses past the edge of the unit. This allows for what we call the tributary area. There's another handout that discusses that. So, but we're always looking for is the trusses right up to the edge of the unit plus the truss beyond. Same thing both directions. The truss is right up to the edge of the unit plus the truss beyond. Because, for example, this double truss here is carrying not only the unit, but it's also carrying half of the weight of the spacing to the next truss. Okay, so that's that. I'm going to reproduce the same thing for the dining unit, and then we'll go to the next stage and get the truss profile.